All right, we got to talk about the Never Again bill here today. It's like the State Operations Committee or something like that, Government Finance and Operations Committee.
The State Government Finance and Policy Committee in the House.
There you go. You got it. You follow this real close. So they're hearing the Never Again bill, which is authored by the newest rep, Drew Roach from Farmington in the House, and then the Senate is Bill Liskey. This is the signature piece of legislation by Action for Liberty's president, former Representative Erik Mortensen, when he was in the legislature. Great piece of legislation. Essentially, here's what it does. It gets rid of Governor Walz or any future governor's ability to just unilaterally declare an emergency powers and take it amongst themselves to issue executive orders like they're laws, which is the big thing. And then if it wasn't clear from just taking that away, it also says you can't trample on these rights, and there's a Bill of Rights for emergencies. So it's a great piece of legislation. My heart and soul is in this legislation, and it got a hearing today. But
and it's continuing to grow with support as as we reported last time, there was already 8 people in the House plus 2 people in the Senate. Now we can report that Senator Tory Westrom of SD 12 has also added his name onto this bill, which shows the Never Again bill is growing in support and the people want to see this pass.
Right. So it got a hearing this morning, but the interesting thing is Jim Nash, who's the chair of the committee, he heard 2 bills before it. They had this room scheduled from 8 to 10, and so the Never Again bill didn't get heard until like the last 15 minutes. And so they've gone to recess now, and they're supposedly going to come back at 8 o'clock, which sucks for the people that actually had to travel there to go hear the testimony or be part of the testimony, which is bullshit. But anyhow, it did actually start out, and we got some testifiers, one being Lisa Monet, who is a hero of ours, who stood up to Governor Walz. She was so wronged by Governor Walz and Keith Ellison during this, filed bankruptcy. She's now operating a sweet-ass bar in Wisconsin. So we lost businesses, someone that knew what she was doing. And, I mean, honest to God, this testimony is fantastic. So go ahead and play this. This is the B1 Dawson. Lisa Monet Zarza. I always call her Lisa Monet.
So we're going to bring up Lisa Monet Zarza, and then I believe we have Riggs and Manders, and then former Representative Mortensen, since you've testified previously, we'll try to get to you before the committee is done, but we'd like to be done on time. So please introduce yourself for the record and keep your testimony brief, as we would like to get to a vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to testify. My name is Lisa Monet Zarza, and I'm the previous owner of 2 restaurants in the state of Minnesota, Alibi Drinkery in Lakeville and Froggy Bottoms in Northfield. On November 20th of 2020, Governor Walz enacted the Executive Order 2099, which took the occupancy rate of 50% across the state and shut down all restaurants, hair salons, and gyms 100%, at the same time opening up all retail stores 100% before Black Friday. This was both an unconstitutional and a discriminatory action against a specific group of business owners in the state. There was no scientific evidence linking the spread of COVID in our industries. On December 16th, I made the decision with other restaurant owners to open up our restaurant. I was sued by the Attorney General. My liquor license was revoked for 5 years. The city of Northfield refused to issue my liquor license in their city, claiming that I was not of moral character to have a liquor license. The Minnesota Department of Health first suspended and then further revoked my food service license, although I had never violated a food code. I was banned from owning a restaurant in the state of Minnesota for 5 years, and I essentially lost both restaurants because of this. I was unhireable in my profession of 30 years and was forced to find employment in Wisconsin, where I bought a bar. I've commuted 2 hours a day for 3 years. I was sued in the amount for $300,000 by the Attorney General, and I was forced to file personal bankruptcy. All of this happened because of an unconstitutional, unlawful, and discriminatory action by Governor Walz. I'm here today to ask you to never allow the rights of the citizens of this state to be seized by an unconstitutional executive order by the governor.
Thank you, Ms. Zarza.
Thank you, Chair.
That's so awesome. Yeah, she did a great job in my opinion.
Yeah, she nailed it.
Yeah. And, we found her because we were looking for victims of Governor Walz's emergency powers. I still think to this day we found a bunch of heroes. Like, that's damn good testimony and 100% true and 100% bullshit. And that's why the Never Again bill needs to pass, because we got to stop that from happening in the future.
And like you were saying, there were these other bills that were being pushed up ahead of it. I mean, these are delay tactics that the establishment uses to try to prevent good bills like this from moving forward. And that's why they had no problem moving forward the Kristen Robbins bill. So she has a fake version of the Never Again bill, HF 21, and her version of it increases the time period for the emergency powers from 5 days to 14 days, does not prevent vax or mask mandates and other tyrannical actions. Are we free or are we not? Action for Liberty is fighting to give the governor 0 days to issue unilateral dictates on we the people. This is all proven and explained very well by AFRL President Erik Mortensen, who testified against the HF 21 fake Never Again bill by Kristen Robbins. So let's go ahead and pull up that video. We can check out what Erik Mortensen had to say. And because, like we're saying, the HF 26 was not given all of the ability for people to testify on, but he was able to testify against this fake legislation.
This is the before Dawson. It's at the 4158 mark there. We're jumping around a little bit. There you go. There's more.
If it went either way, I think we'd all
That's
be
not
really
more.
worried about.
No.
Go for it a little bit. Let's use the arrows. There you go. You there.
And if you'd like to come to the testifiers table. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Good morning, committee. My name is Erik Mortensen. I am currently the president of Action for Liberty, where our mission is preserving liberty for the next generation. And while I appreciate the spirit of Representative Robbins' bill, it falls woefully short of actually stopping tyrannical actions from happening again in this state. It does not address 12.32, which allows the governor in his executive orders to carry the weight of law. So this would be a pro-mask mandate, pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine mandate type of bill. It's a bad bill. It just falls woefully short. Over the last 4 years, we've seen a handful of what I would call fake Never Again bills get brought before the legislature. And I'd categorize this as another fake Never Again bill that falls woefully short. It nearly triples, the amount of time the governor can unilaterally declare an emergency from 5 days to 14 days. And the fact that it still retains the ability for one man or woman to unilaterally declare an emergency, appointing themselves the king of the state, is completely unacceptable. We need a real bill, House File 26, that actually prevents this stuff from ever happening again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, former
All right, that's good right there. So
Hold on.
Next, we will go to the Zoom testifier, which I believe is ready.
Okay.
And
I thought he
members-
was correcting. I forgot. He corrects Drew Roach later
Yeah.
on about the king.
right,
Comment, but that was good.
Yeah, he let Moore get away with calling Walz a king, but he didn't let Drew Roach get away with it for whatever reason.
Right, so
You'd think that you should be able to say things just as you feel and as you see it, but apparently not in Jim Nash's world. And the key issue surrounding her piece of legislation is that it allows Walz to be able to simply declare a new emergency every 14 days, creating a serious loophole for tyranny. And while Action for Liberty was certainly happy to see Representative Ben Davis from 6A and his statements against governor authority closing down churches, that's all great and dandy. But then he starts praising Kristen Robbins' bill instead of the Never Again bill. So Ben Davis, if you want to make sure that Governor Walz can never shut you out of your church again, you're still allowing him to do it for 2 weeks with the current legislation that you're supporting with Kristen Robbins. So if Ben Davis wants to truly be against this COVID tyranny, the only way to do it is with the Never Again bill. So I hope that he has come to that realization through this committee, because it's clear that the Robbins bill does not get this moving forward. And even though the Kristen Robbins bill is dealing with the same issue, the same statute, her bill is not being asked to jump over the hurdles that the Never Again bill has to. Committee Chair Jim Nash has stated that 2 other committee chairs want the bill to go through their committees as well, highlighting the establishment swampy delay tactics that crooked politicians will use to block important liberty legislation. But meanwhile, Representative Drew Roach was serving his constituents by bringing freedom-based legislation and testifying for it. Most viewers would have had no idea that this was Roach's first time presenting a bill to a committee as a representative because he handled himself like a pro. While Democrats like Representative Mike Howard attempted to trip up Roach, the attempts were unsuccessful as Drew Roach moved forward. And even Democrat Mike Freiberg tried to capitalize on the potentially divided opinions of GOP legislators on the Never Again bill by asking committee chair Jim Nash if he preferred the Robbins or Roach version of this legislation. Nash refused to answer the question. I wonder why, but considering that Jim Nash is a co-author of the Never Again bill and is not a co-author of the fake Kristen Robbins
really? I
version.
didn't know. I assumed he was.
That's what I figured too until I looked and I realized Jim Nash is not listed on
So
there.
he doesn't have a preference.
So Action for Liberty hopes to see Jim Nash do the right thing and fight for the policy that will truly prevent king-like edicts from our governor. And we also hope he will stay true to his word as a co-author on this bill that he would make sure to push it forward. So the Never Again bill still sits in committee, as Jake has said, and they had not held any conclusive vote by 10 a.m. The committee is scheduled to return at 8 p.m. tonight. Massive slap in the face of the Patriots who showed up to testify. So A4L will continue to keep Patriots informed as this goes on. The Drew Roach, like I said, did a terrific job in testifying for this piece of legislation. I felt he hit all of his points, and it's obviously a difficult thing to do, being in front of these representatives and being questioned and having them try to trip you up with stupid questions. I thought that Drew Roach handled himself fantastic.
Nicole Riggs with COVID Justice Minnesota, who lost her father during COVID, couldn't see him, couldn't be with him, which is another sad part of the story in the emergency powers by Governor Walz. Did great testimony. I'd highly recommend you go watch that video. The Democrats tried pulling a fast one. Dawson, I want you to pull up the B3. This is an interesting one. Cleavorn, what's Cleavorn? Jenny Cleavorn's trying to catch them on one. She's like, well, your Bill of Rights are missing a bunch of rights. Why are you missing things like freedom of the press?
No, that wasn't Jenny Cleavorn. That was Bonner, wasn't it? Pretty sure that was Kristen
I'm already
Bonner.
forgetting. Oh, yeah,
Bonner.
you're right. That's Bonner.
Yeah.
Cleavorn was putting Nash to task about coming back at 8 p.m. tonight.
Right.
Yes, correct. I forgot already. This is at the...
Well, all these Democrats believe the same exact crap.
They do.
So
it's hard to tell.
It's easy to confuse.
Yeah, except for Lee Finke. It's pretty obvious who that one is. All right, so this is Bonner. I'm stand corrected. This is a gem, by the way. Also, despite being a very religious person, didn't see any problem with religious practice during COVID. That's an interesting one. Go ahead and play this. This is the B3, Dawson.
And I'd ask that you recognize our testifiers regarding this critical piece of legislation.
Well, Representative Roach, before we do that, we're going to get to the series of amendments that have been introduced. Now. So who has the A1? Representative Bonner. Microphone on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we talked a lot about rights and freedoms, and first I just want to be clear. You mentioned that we restricted during the pandemic the ability to practice religion. Last time I checked, I'm a solid, hardcore Christian. I pray. I read my Bible. I do all of that at home. I do that with my family. And I don't think that there was anything specifically in the executive orders that curtailed that. So I just want to be very clear about that. As a Christian.
It literally prohibits them from going to church in the executive orders. Do I even need to pull this up? I mean, I could give you the executive order. Like, literally, it restricted people's ability to go to church and participate in worship. Unless she's in the Christian that doesn't believe in fellowship. That's an interesting Bible and an interesting. What part of the Christian sect are you in that doesn't believe in fellowship? But yeah, that's the most. By the way, at this point, I guess there's some people sneering at her in the audience because it's such a ridiculous claim, and the chair has to interrupt. Go ahead, play this.
I find that slightly offensive. But that said, I do want to say...
Representative Bonner, give me just 1 second. Members of the crowd, we're not going to engage in commentary that's at that level. We're going to let the committee do the committee work, and if you can't do that, we're going to ask you to leave. Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But then specifically, we want to talk about rights. And I noticed that in your bill, it very clearly delineates very specific things, but it leaves out others. And I'm really struggling with why we left out parts of the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment. And if that is in fact your intent, is to not impede on people's rights, then why would we not include things like the freedom of the press and the right to free speech? I struggle with that. That feels like a fundamental right that everyone in this room believes in, and I would suspect, as someone who works with Action for Liberty, you believe highly in that value. And while I may disagree with you, I agree that you have the right to speak. And I agree that the press should exist and have the ability to do that. Secondly, we left out the freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, the freedom for excessive bail, the freedom for cruel and unusual punishment, and the freedom of conscience. And I feel like those things were deliberately left out, and I am not certain why, but my amendment would essentially put back in the portions of the First, Fourth, and Eighth Amendments that you had left out.
Oh, yeah, pause real quick. Now, this is like her trying to pull a fast one, right? Like, oh, you're not standing for all rights. Like, vote against this thing, right? You guys clearly don't want this thing. That's why you left it out. Now, by the way, the reason it was left out is nowhere that I can recall was Tim Walz during COVID emergency powers trying to restrict those rights, okay? So really what the Never Again bill
I guess, the First Amendment, we could tie it to freedom of religion. People weren't able to go to church and whatnot.
That's in the Never Again bill, right?
Right. So I guess, right. And I'm looking at what her amendment actually reads. It reads the freedom of the press, the freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, the freedom from excessive bail, the freedom from cruel and unusual punishment, and the freedom of conscience.
Right. So I don't recall that being something that Tim Walz was going after during his COVID emergency, okay?
Right, definitely the freedom of conscience. There's no doubt on that.
Well, okay, that's fair, yes. But
right.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
but
that's
no,
why
exactly. She's bringing in unrelated things to this bill.
But, and being someone that was part of the Never Again, right? Like, I helped with all the people in Minnesota, like the Lisa Monet Zarza and Hansen and Jane Moss, Larvita, grabbing all this stuff and helping them get this and communicate this to Erik Mortensen. So this bill is written. So that's why it wasn't in there, knowing this firsthand. But I don't disagree with those rights. So Drew Roach, this is how he responds.
Representative Roach, would you like to discuss that?
Mr. Chair, Representative Bonner, I appreciate your willingness to add more civil liberties. So I would accept that amendment. I am not opposed to any of those civil liberties that you're asking for. I think
Bingo.
You're right on.
There you go. I love it.
So I appreciate
there's some unity. There's bipartisanship right there. Yes, add those to it as well. And I think they just were like dumbfounded, like, okay. So and by the way, Drew Roach has never testified in front of a committee before.
Right.
Like, he's barely participating in committees. He's a rookie legislator, and his first thing is, I'll accept that Democrats' amendment that adds more rights that are guaranteed and protected into my bill. 100%. So there you go. I would argue she made it better, even though somehow she's completely ignorant to the fact that, religious freedom was completely trampled on by Tim Walz. Mm-hmm. Well, this bill is going to go to multiple committees, and I think you made that great point. It's like they pass Robin's fake Never Again bill out of committee and puts it on the general register so it can be brought up and voted on. But somehow Drew Roach's, which is tackling the same part of law, emergency powers, is now got to go to other committees. But by the way, it didn't even get a vote. They actually end up recessing till 8 o'clock tonight. Yeah. So it does seem like they're trying to kill the Never Again bill, but I know people and our viewers won't allow that to happen. They'll let their voice be heard by contacting their legislator.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think the rhinos want to push the fake one up before the real one. So the Patriots are going to have to keep the legislators' feet to the fire and make sure that they are passing the real deal so that we never have COVID tyranny again.
Amen.